It's like this whole Bud Light deal. You know, people are talking now, sell out and all this shit. They believe me, I'm the furthest fucking thing from a sellout.
Yeah.
How about you go back and look at all the good things they've done?
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point.
And where they really stand and what they really believe in. They take care of veterans. They take care of veterans' families and first responders' families who have fallen. If you consider yourself a patriot, you should be drinking barrels of Bud Light. Believe me when I tell you. All these other beer companies out there, woke is what you're worried about. They're the wokest of the woke.
And these clips that are surfacing about Dana White on 2 podcasts are bringing a lot of people to question, is Dana White using the military and veterans specifically in order to try and profit, A, and B, trying to boost the image of Bud Light from some of the repercussions that they've faced and backlash and boycotting that's happened over the past year from the Dylan Mulvaney situation. Because myself, as many others, were not totally involved with every step of the way, I'm going to break this down for you, TLDR.
Celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it. Check out my Instagram story to see how you can enjoy March Madness with Bud Light and maybe win some money too.
Dylan Mulvaney was a sponsored creator, which Bud Light used to do a $15,000 giveaway, as he is known to be a creator that is undergoing transition and was big on the platform. And it looks like Bud Light was trying to expand their horizons across other areas beyond what their traditional media was in regards to sports and music and festivals and things like that. It was no secret that Bud Light was synonymous with things such as boxing, NFL, and on top of that, NASCAR as well, as their images and logos were blasted across these places, which these were typically sports or activities that were meant for people that were centerline or maybe more right traditionalists. But as far as that goes, putting their brand in the hands of Dylan Mulvaney was the worst thing they could have done. And this is a big issue because a lot of people were up in arms about this, including big stars such as Kid Rock.
Grandpa's feeling a little frisky today. Let me say something to all you and be as clear and concise as possible. Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch. Have a terrific day.
Now, back in May, it was known that there were actually 2 executives that took a leave of absence during this. And then on top of that, Anheuser-Busch, the owner of Bud Light, doubled down on this and actually went to target executives trying to use their targeted marketing as far as that goes, because they've been known to be more friendly with their LGBTQ advertising and things like that inside their stores. This was then brought up, and then on top of that, Bud Light was again under fire, and some of their products were removed from stores such as Target as well. As a result of this, initially there was only a 10% drop of their sales, and then further, as far as today of recording this video, it was shown to be an impact of 30%, and this is only almost 6 months later, so the impact is quite huge, as we're going to cover some of the numbers there as well. As a result of all of this, Modelo Especial was actually the #1 beer in the United States, which I find ironic that, like, the right of the U.S. is now aligning with Mexican beer companies. Like, that's a little crazy, but that's how things unfolded. And on top of that, the name Modelo Especial should also be noted because they were a competitor, which also were in the UFC as the primary sponsor as far as beers goes for that company. And officially, it looks like Bud Light is now trying to return back to their roots, as they've now just sparked a deal only a month ago with the UFC. It was known that the UFC had a record from Crypto.com of 175 million, which people have, according to sources here, said that this dollar amount is actually more than that, which breaks the record as far as Bud Light offering their 6-year deal for this. So it does look like they were trying to knock off their competitor as far as Crypto.com to be the primary. So they'd be primary. And on top of that, also as far as beers goes, to knock Modelo off as well. Dana White stated, "I'm proud to announce we are back in business together. There are many reasons why I chose to go with Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light. Most importantly, because I feel we are very aligned when it comes to our core values and what the UFC brand stands for." As you see here, Dana White is going on the publicity stunt here, saying that he's not doing this out of money, even though we know there's a lot more money on the table. And on top of that, there is more clips surfacing as to why he chose Bud Light versus other competitors that could have been there. And this was made prominent as Dana White attended the Barstool Sports podcast called Bussin' with the Boys, ran by NFL players Compton and Taylor Lewan, and also appeared on Theo Vaughn's podcast. And it was actually something that was brought up because they agree, saying that the brands can't control entertainment and how people need to take a stand up for themselves.
We are very aligned as far as core values go. You know what I mean? 65,000 Americans they employ.
Yeah.
That right there should be enough. 65,000 Americans are employed there. Why would you want to put a bullet in that brand off of one fucking thing? How about you go back and look at all the good things they've done? They take care of veterans. They take care of veterans' families and first responders' families who have fallen. They're showing right now that they're coming with me and they want to be aligned with me. Mm-hmm. Those of you that are hardcores, some of you guys are fanatical on this. That should be your, you guys think you're all looking for an apology. I fucking apologize to you.
And that was the first interview with Theo Vaughn here, but he doubles down and even expands upon that even more on the Bussin' Bros podcast. Check this out.
Let's talk about one of your more recent battles, sponsorship, Bud Light. Obviously, you had to stand in the batter's box. I was messaging you about that, on how you handle yourself when people are coming after you, when you make a decision like that. Can you talk about that recent battle with sponsored with Bud Light? Obviously, you talked about on Theo's podcast, which I thought was awesome.
Thank you. You know who I am and understand the way that I operate, and especially at this point in my life and my age, nothing is about money anymore. I've made money. Everybody thought I was going to retire in 2016. I've made money. I'm good. So if I have made the decision to go with Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light, I'm good fucking reason. I know the inner workings of the beer business better than any of the other these guys out, these fans and all this shit. And basically, they went after Anheuser-Busch for being woke and doing what they did. I think that, obviously I've laid out all the reasons on why I'm way more aligned with Anheuser-Busch than any other beer company out there. And for those of you that haven't heard, 65,000 Americans are employed by Anheuser-Busch. 65,000 Americans, and a lot of them are vets. That alone should be enough reason for you to not try to put a bullet in Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch, number one. Number two, they spend almost $1 billion a year with U.S. farmers, okay? That should be a reason you do it. All the stuff that they do for first responders and vets and $44 million spent over the last however many years for their families. Every time there's a natural disaster in America, they shut down the plant and turn it into a bottled water facility. And they ship out, and they've done something crazy like 100 million bottles of bottled water that they've sent out to Americans in need. Give me a break, okay? I am way more aligned with Anheuser-Busch, so that's why I did that deal with them. Now, you're going to have people who come and back. You have these guys that consider themselves patriots, who love this country and everything else. Let me just tell you this. If you consider yourself a patriot, you should be drinking barrels of Bud Light. Believe me when I tell you. All these other beer companies out there, woke is what you're worried about. They're the wokest of the woke. You just haven't seen it or heard about it. So
Now, I like to fact check this as somebody that served in the military and can kind of talk about it. And I believe, like, if you're going to use the veteran thing or they support military, we should debunk some of these things and kind of look at the true numbers, not just as a fact of, like, yes, we agree any support is good support, but also looking at the metrics of, like, how much support that is. I think is important for people like you to know where your dollars are going towards and if you actually support those brands and companies as well. Now, according to the financial statements of Anheuser-Busch, it appears that there are 167,000 employees worldwide across 50 different countries. Now, on their official site, it only shows 19,000 people in the nation, which obviously makes them look better. And they're showing that there are about 5,500 employees that do work in the U.S. that are under that. So if you look at those numbers, that's about 28% of their U.S. population. However, if you were to look at this as the entirety of their entire company, it's actually a much smaller fraction. And that's because that would only be 3.29% of their entire workforce if you looked at even everything outside of the US. This also made me start looking at other employers that might be more pro-American, pro-military, and things like that. And there were several lists that were out there that were more veteran-friendly, and some of them in the top 50, which, by the way, Anheuser-Busch was not even up there, which I was surprised that there weren't some other competitors that could have aligned, but I do understand that they were, positioning themselves within a market against Modelo and also against what the audience was going to be looking at, who their audience would be to actually engage with their product. And the last veteran military thing that Dana White does say here is he talks about $44 million that has gone to military families and veterans alike. And I started looking at their budget and numbers and showing that's not a lot of money here, because if you look at how much they've made, let's just break this down. So according to their financial stats of 2022, it shows they made $57 billion in revenue in one singular year. That would be 0.07% of the gross profit. Obviously, you also have to consider that they have operating expenses as well, which according to the same financial report of 2022 shows $31 billion. This shows that only 0.14% of the earnings contributed to veterans for 2022. Dana White is saying 44 million in total, all time. So I'm it's really such a small number, and I don't know if you guys think this is worthy enough to sit there and say, yes, I need to go support Anheuser-Busch and go back to buying Bud Light. And it does appear that a lot of people are not buying this, as well as the comments on the Bussin' Bros podcast Instagram page showing this clip actually say this. D-Rush206 says they also paid the UFC a shit ton of money to try and repair their image. I am CVSH says, whenever you need to swing some shit, mention vets. On the contrary, Glock27 says he's using logic which won't work for people that are upset by his decision. So this is where I let you guys kind of weigh out the facts that you've seen here of publicly sourced information going forward and see what you guys think, because that's where the discussion continues down in the comments below. If you guys like what I do on this channel and you want to see more videos like this, make sure you guys hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.